The clock on the kitchen wall ticks past 8, and I'm still sitting here, staring at the table I set hours ago. It's my 38th birthday, and the apartment feels too big, too quiet. I spent the morning arranging everything just right: clean plates, polished glasses, a centerpiece of white lilies I picked up because they looked hopeful. The bottle of whiskey, my favorite, sits unopened in the middle, its amber glow catching the light from the chandelier. I thought someone would show up. My parents, maybe, or a cousin, or at least Selena. But the doorbell hasn't rung, and the silence is starting to feel like a guest I didn't invite. I lean back in my chair, the leather creaking under me, and try to shake off the weight in my chest. I'm not the type to throw myself pity parties, but this one's hard to ignore. I'm a software engineer, good at fixing problems, breaking things down into logical steps, but I can't debug this. Nobody came. Nobody even called. I glance at my phone again, nothing. No texts, no missed calls, just a blank screen staring back at me like it's disappointed too. I think about calling Selena. She's been distant lately, always rushing off to meetings or weekends away, but she wouldn't forget today. Would she? My thumb hovers over her name, and I hit dial before I can overthink it. The line rings once, twice, then her voice comes through, bright and sharp, like she's mid-laugh. Julian? Oh, hold on. I'm in Europe with your brother. Europe. With Brooks. The words hit like a punch I didn't see coming. I grip the phone tighter, my knuckles whitening, and try to process what she's saying. She's laughing, like it's no big deal, like she didn't just leave me sitting here alone on my birthday. Before I can respond, another voice cuts in, Brooks, smug and smooth as ever. Why bother, man? She's gonna divorce you soon anyway. His words hang there, heavy, like they've been waiting to be said for months. I don't say anything back. I can't. My throat feels tight, and the room seems to shrink around me. Divorce. Is that what this is? Is that why she's been pulling away? Why she's always with him instead of here? I hang up without a word, my hand shaking as I set the phone down. The apartment is quieter now, if that's even possible, and I feel like I'm sinking into the floor. I sit there for a long time, staring at the whiskey bottle, trying to figure out what just happened. My brother, the one who always gets the spotlight, the one who's got more money than sense, is halfway across the world with my wife. And I'm here, surrounded by plates nobody's going to use. I think about calling my parents, but I know they're probably at some gala or golf trip, too busy to check in. They've always been like that. Brooks is the star, and I'm just the guy who's good with computers. I rub my eyes, tired of feeling like this, tired of waiting for people who don't show up. Then I hear it, a soft knock at the door. My heart jumps, just for a second, thinking maybe Selena changed her mind, maybe someone remembered. I cross the room, my socks silent on the hardwood, and open the door. It's Miriam, my old mentor from university, standing there with a bouquet of daisies and a warm smile that feels like a lifeline. Happy birthday, Julian, she says, her voice steady, like she's been planning this all day. I step aside, letting her in, and something in me shifts. She's here. She chose to be here. We sit at the table, and she tells me about her new apartment, her retirement, the way she's learning to bake. I pour us both a glass of whiskey, and the burn feels good, grounding. We talk, and for the first time all night, I'm not thinking about who's not here. I'm just here, with her, and it's enough. Later, when she's laughing at some story about her cat, I pick up my phone. Not to call anyone, not to check for messages, but to take a picture. It's me and Miriam, smiling, the whiskey bottle between us, the lilies in the background. I don't think too hard about it. I just send it to Selena. No caption, no explanation, just the photo. Then I turn my phone off and set it face down on the table. I don't need to hear her response, not tonight. I look at Miriam, who's slicing into a lemon pie she brought, and I feel something I haven't in a long time. Peace. The silence isn't heavy anymore. It's just quiet, like a blank page waiting for something new. I take a sip of whiskey and let the warmth spread through me. This isn't how I thought my birthday would go, but maybe it's better. Maybe this is the start of something I didn't know I needed. I lean forward, listening as Miriam tells another story, and for now, that's all I want. Just this moment, this table, this glass. The rest can wait. It's hard to pinpoint exactly when Selena started to slip away from me, but looking back, I think it was around the time we got married. I'm sitting in my office now, months before that empty birthday, staring at a photo of us from our wedding day. She's radiant in her white dress, her smile wide and bright, and I'm standing next to her, a little stiff in my suit, but happy, really happy. I thought she was everything I could ever want. She was elegant, the kind of woman who could walk into a room and make everyone turn their heads. As a marketing executive, she had this gift for talking to people, making them feel important, whether it was at a fancy gala or a coffee shop. I'm not like that. I'm quieter, more comfortable behind a computer screen, building software that makes things work better, like systems for hospitals to save time and lives. But Selena, she could charm anyone, and for a while, I thought she'd chosen me because she saw something in me that others didn't. I was wrong. I set the photo down on my desk, rubbing my temples, trying to make sense of how we got here. After the wedding, things changed, slow at first, then all at once. She stopped asking me how my day went, stopped sitting with me on the couch to watch those old sci-fi movies we both liked. I'd come home from work, my head full of code and deadlines, and she'd be on her phone, texting or scrolling, barely looking up. Just work stuff, she'd say if I asked. But her voice was always sharp, like I was interrupting something more important. I tried to brush it off, told myself she was busy, that her job demanded a lot. But then the weekends started disappearing. She'd pack a bag and say she was visiting friends or going to some networking event, and I'd nod, not wanting to seem clingy. I loved her, and love means trusting, right? But the truth was, I was starting to feel like a stranger in my own apartment. I leaned back in my chair, the hum of my computer filling the quiet. I think about Brooks, my brother, and how he's been around more lately. Not with me, but with her. He's always been the loud one, the guy who throws money around like it's nothing, the one our parents brag about at every family dinner. He's got his real estate deals, his flashy cars, and a way of talking that makes people hang on his words. I'm not jealous of him, not really, but I've always known he gets the attention I never did. Growing up, I was the kid who fixed the family computer, who built apps for fun, but to them, I was just good with tech. Brooks was the star, and I was the shadow. So when Selena started spending time with him, calling it family stuff, I didn't question it at first. I wanted to believe it was innocent, that they were just bonding because she was part of the family now. But there was this one night, maybe 6 months ago, that I can't shake. I came home early from a late coding session, and they were in our living room, laughing over glasses of wine. The air felt thick, like I'd walked into something I wasn't supposed to see. "Oh, Julian, you're back," she said, her voice too bright, and Brooks just smirked, leaning back on the couch like he owned the place. I mumbled something about being tired and went to bed, but I lay there for hours, staring at the ceiling, wondering why I felt so small in my own home. After that, it got worse. She'd mentioned Brooks in passing, how he took her to some exclusive restaurant, how he knew all the right people for her career. I'd listen, nodding, trying to be supportive, but each word felt like a brick piling up between us. I started to notice how she'd light up when she talked about him, how her eyes would spark in a way they hadn't for me in months. I'd ask her to stay home sometimes, maybe have dinner together, but she'd wave me off, saying she had plans, and I'd end up eating alone at the kitchen table, the TV on just to fill the silence. I'm not proud of it, but I started checking her phone when she was in the shower, not all the time, just once or twice. The messages weren't blatant, but they were there. Brooke sending her memes, her replying with laughing emojis, plans to meet up for drinks. Nothing I could point to and say, "This is wrong," but enough to make my stomach twist. I never confronted her. I didn't know how. I'm not the guy who yells or makes a scene. I solve problems logically, step by step, but this wasn't a bug I could fix with a few lines of code. I look at the wedding photo again, and it feels like it belongs to someone else's life. I loved her completely, quietly, the way I do everything, but now I'm starting to see I was just background noise to her. She wanted the spotlight, and I couldn't give her that, not like Brooks could. I closed my eyes, letting the weight of it settle. I don't know what's coming, but I know I can't keep living like this, fading into the walls of my own story. I need to find a way to matter again, to myself if no one else. I'm sitting on the couch in my apartment, a week before my birthday, my laptop open but untouched on the coffee table. The screen's gone dark, reflecting my face back at me, and I barely recognize the guy staring back. Tired eyes, a jaw that's been clenched too long. I'm trying to focus on work, some new feature for the hospital software I've been building for years, but my mind keeps drifting to my family, to the way they've always made me feel like I'm not quite enough. It's not a new feeling, but tonight it's sharper, like a splinter I can't ignore. Nobody's reached out about my birthday. Not even a text to ask if I'm doing anything special. I keep checking my phone, hoping for something, a message from my mom, maybe, or my dad, but the screen stays empty. It's silly to care this much, I know. I'm 38, not a kid waiting for a party, but the silence feels personal, like they've all decided I'm not worth the effort. I lean back, rubbing my hands over my face, and let my thoughts wander to the past, to all the years I spent trying to fit into a family that never really saw me. Growing up, it was always about Brooks. He was the loud one, the charmer, the kid who'd talk his way out of trouble and get a pat on the back for it. I was the quiet one, the one who'd rather take apart a computer than toss a football. My parents didn't know what to do with me. He's just good with computers, my mom would say, like it was a hobby I'd grow out of, not a skill that could change lives. I didn't mind too much back then. I liked my world of circuits and code, where things made sense if you worked at them long enough. But it stung when they'd skip my science fairs to cheer at Brooks' soccer games, or when they'd brag about his latest business idea while I was in the next room, building software that kept emergency rooms running smoothly. I never said anything. I just kept working, kept proving myself in my own way, thinking maybe one day they'd notice. They didn't. I think about the last family dinner I went to, maybe a year ago. It was at some fancy restaurant Brooks picked, all glass walls and overpriced wine. My parents were there, beaming at him as he talked about his new condo development, throwing around numbers like they were confetti. I sat across from them, picking at my food, waiting for a chance to mention the award my team won for the hospital project. It never came. Every time I opened my mouth, Brooks would jump in with another story, and my parents would laugh or nod, hanging on his every word. Selena was there too, sitting next to me but not really with me, her eyes on him, her laugh a little too loud. I remember feeling like I was watching a play I wasn't cast in. By the end of the night, I'd barely said 10 words, and nobody noticed. I stopped going to those dinners after that. I told myself it was because I was busy, but the truth is, I was tired of being invisible. I stand up now, pacing the living room, my socks scuffing against the rug. The apartment feels too big tonight, like it's swallowing me whole. I think about calling my mom, just to see if she remembers my birthday's coming up, but I can't bring myself to do it. What if she doesn't? What if she brushes it off with some excuse about how busy they are? I've spent so long trying not to care, trying to be the guy who doesn't need their approval, but it's not working anymore. Something inside me feels cracked, like a piece of glass that's still holding together but won't for much longer. I stop by the window, looking out at the city lights blinking in the dark. I wonder what it would be like to have a family that shows up, not just for the big moments but for the small ones too, like a birthday or a random Tuesday when you just need someone to listen. I've never had that. Even when I was a kid, I'd spend holidays in my room, tinkering with gadgets, while Brooks and my parents made plans without me. I told myself it was fine, that I liked being alone, but now I'm not so sure. Alone isn't the same as lonely, and I'm starting to feel the difference. I think about Selena, how she's been pulling away, spending more time with Brooks than with me. I wonder if she's part of this too, if she's decided I'm not worth showing up for either. The thought makes my chest ache, but I push it down, not ready to face it yet. I walk back to the couch and pick up my phone again, scrolling through my contacts. There's nobody I feel like calling, nobody I trust enough to say, I'm hurting, and I don't know why it's hitting me this hard. My thumb hovers over Miriam's name, my old mentor from college, but I don't press it. I haven't talked to her in years, and what would I even say? That my family forgot me? That I'm scared my wife's leaving me for my brother? It sounds pathetic, even in my head. I set the phone down and close my eyes, letting the quiet settle over me. This isn't just neglect anymore. It's something bigger, something that's been building for years. It's abandonment, plain and simple, and I don't know how to fix it. All I know is I can't keep waiting for them to change, for them to see me. I need to do something, anything, to stop feeling like this. I open my eyes and look at the laptop again. Maybe work's not the answer tonight, but it's something I'm good at, something I control. I sit down, wake the screen, and start typing, losing myself in the familiar rhythm of code. It's not much, but it's a start, a way to remind myself I'm still here, even if nobody else thinks so. I'm sitting at my desk 2 weeks before my birthday, the glow of my computer screen the only light in the room. The apartment's quiet, like it's been most nights lately, and I'm scrolling through emails, trying to focus on work but feeling that familiar ache in my chest. Selena's out again, some work event, she said, but I don't ask anymore. I know she won't tell me the truth, and I'm too tired to chase it. My birthday's coming up, and I keep thinking about how nobody's mentioned it, not her, not my parents, not even a coworker. I don't want a big party or anything, but the idea of another year passing without anyone noticing stings more than I want to admit. I lean back in my chair, running my hands through my hair, and stare at the ceiling. I need to do something different this time, something that feels like it matters. That's when I think of Miriam, my old mentor from college. She was the one person who always saw me, not just as a coder, but as someone with ideas, someone worth listening to. I haven't talked to her in years, not since she moved away after I graduated, but I heard she's back in the city, retired now. My fingers hover over my phone, and before I can talk myself out of it, I find her number and call. She picks up on the second ring, her voice warm and familiar, like no time's passed at all. "Julian, what a surprise," she says, and just hearing her say my name makes me feel steadier. We talk for a bit, about her new place, about my job, and then I blurted out, "I'm turning 38 soon, and I want to have a small dinner, just a few people. Would you come?" There's a pause, and I hold my breath, worried I've overstepped, but then she says, "I'd love to. Tell me when and where." I hang up feeling lighter, like I've taken a step towards something real. Fast forward to the night of my birthday, and I'm standing in my apartment, the table set with plates I polished myself, the whiskey bottle I picked out weeks ago waiting in the center. The clock's ticking past 7, and nobody's here. Not Selena, not my family. Nobody. I've been trying not to check my phone, but I can't help it. Still no messages, no calls. I called Selena earlier, and she laughed about being in Europe with Brooks, his smug voice cutting in about divorce. I hung up, sent a photo with Miriam later, and turned my phone off. That's done now. I'm trying to shake off the hurt when the doorbell rings, soft but clear. My heart lifts, just for a second, and I cross the room to open it. There's Miriam, standing in the hallway with a bouquet of daisies and a foil-covered dish that smells like lemon and sugar. "Happy birthday," she says, her eyes crinkling with a smile that feels like home. I step aside, letting her in, and the weight I've been carrying all day starts to loosen. She sets the flowers in a vase I didn't even know I had, chatting about how she's been experimenting with baking since she retired. "This is lemon pie," she says, uncovering the dish. "I hope it's edible." I laugh, the sound surprising me, and grab 2 glasses for the whiskey. We sit at the table, and she raises her glass, looking right at me. "To you, Julian," she says. "To the man who builds things that matter, even when nobody's watching." Her words hit me hard, not because they're fancy, but because they're true. She sees me, the way I've always wanted to be seen, and for the first time tonight, I feel like I'm enough. We talk about everything, her teaching days, my latest project, the way the city's changed since we met. She tells me about a student she had who reminded her of me, someone quiet but fierce when it came to solving problems. I tell her about the hospital software, how it saved lives in ways I never expected. It's not bragging. It's just easy with her, like I don't have to prove anything. The whiskey burns smooth, and the pie's better than she gave herself credit for, tart and sweet all at once. Hours pass, and I don't even notice. I'm not thinking about Selena or Brooks or my parents. I'm just here, in this moment, with someone who showed up when nobody else did. Later, when we're clearing the plates, I pick up my phone without thinking and snap a photo of us. My arm's around her shoulder, and we're both smiling, the whiskey bottle and flowers in the background. I don't plan to send it. It's just for me, a reminder of this night. But then I think of Selena, of her laugh when she said she was with Brooks, and I open my messages. I send the photo, no words, just the image. It's not about making her jealous or getting even. It's about closing a door, about saying I don't need her to make this day matter. I turn my phone off again and set it down, feeling a calm I haven't in months. Miriam's telling a story about her cat knocking over a plant, and I laugh, really laugh, for the first time all day. The apartment doesn't feel empty anymore. It's just us, this table, this night, and it's more than I thought I'd have. I pour another splash of whiskey and settle back in my chair, letting her voice fill the room. This isn't the birthday I planned, but it's the one I needed, and for now, that's enough. It's the morning after my birthday, and I'm sitting at the kitchen table, the remnants of last night still scattered around me, empty whiskey glasses, a half-eaten lemon pie, the daisies Miriam brought drooping slightly in their vase. The apartment's quiet again, but it's not the heavy kind of quiet from yesterday. It's softer, like the world's giving me a moment to breathe. My phone's been off since I sent that photo of me and Miriam to Selena, and I'm not ready to turn it back on. I know what's waiting for me, missed calls, texts, maybe even voicemails, and I don't have the energy to deal with them yet. I sip my coffee, the mug warm against my palms, and think about last night, how Miriam stayed until almost midnight, how we talked about things I haven't said out loud in years. It wasn't just catching up. It was like she was reminding me who I am, the guy who used to dream big before I got caught up in trying to please everyone else. I'm still thinking about her toast, about building things that matter, when my phone buzzes on the counter. I forgot I turned it on for a second to check my work email. I pick it up, and the screen lights up with notifications, 10 missed calls from Selena, then 20, now 30 as another one rolls in. I let it go to voicemail, my thumb hovering over the screen as texts pop up one after another. Who is she? The first one reads. Then, answer me. Then, Julian, this isn't funny. I stare at the words, and a faint smile tugs at my lips, not because I'm happy, but because it's so predictable. She's not upset that she wasn't here, not sorry for leaving me alone on my birthday. She's just mad about the photo, about the idea that I might not be sitting here waiting for her. I set the phone down, screen up, and watch it buzz again. Another call, another text, but I don't pick it up. Instead, I think about Miriam, about how she showed up when nobody else did, how she didn't need me to be anything other than myself. We talked about dreams last night, about the ones I used to have before I got married, before I started measuring my life by other people's expectations. I told her how I wanted to build something bigger than software, something that could change how people connect, how they heal. She listened, really listened, and said, "You're already doing that, Julian. You just stopped believing it." Her words stuck with me, like a key turning in a lock I didn't know was there. I get up and walk to the window, looking out at the city waking up. Cars crawling through the streets, lights flickering off in the buildings across from mine. I've been surviving here, not living. I've been going through the motions, working long hours, coming home to an empty apartment, hoping Selena would notice me, hoping my family would remember I exist. But last night, sitting across from Miriam, I realized I don't want to keep doing that. I don't want to be the guy who waits for people who don't care if I'm breathing. My phone buzzes again, and I glance at it, another voicemail, probably Selena yelling or crying or both. I don't listen. I turn it off completely this time, shoving it into a drawer like I'm locking away a distraction. I don't need to hear her voice to know what's real. She's been gone for months, maybe longer, and I've been too stubborn to admit it. I think about Brooks, too, about his smug comment on the phone yesterday, about divorce like it's a done deal. Maybe it is. Maybe that's what this has been leading to all along. But if it's over, it's not going to be on their terms. It's going to be on mine. I walk back to the table, picking up the whiskey glasses and carrying them to the sink. The routine of washing them, drying them, putting them away feels grounding, like I'm clearing space for something new. I think about Miriam again, about how she talked about integrity last night, about how love isn't just a feeling, it's a choice, a commitment to show up even when it's hard. I haven't had that, not from Selena, not from my family. But I had it last night, and that small, warm moment with someone who didn't owe me anything but chose to be there anyway. I dry my hands and sit back down, staring at the pie. I cut myself a slice, even though it's barely 9 in the morning, and take a bite. The tartness wakes me up, and I smile, thinking of Miriam's laugh when she warned me it might not be perfect. It's better than perfect, it's honest. I eat slowly, letting my thoughts settle. I don't know what comes next, not exactly, but I know I can't stay here, in this apartment, in this life, waiting for things to change. I need to move, to build, to find people who see me the way Miriam does. I think about my work, about the software I've poured years into, about the lives it's touched without me ever taking credit. Maybe it's time to step out of the shadows, to stop hiding behind my code and start owning what I've done. I finish the pie and lean back, feeling a little steadier. The day's stretching out in front of me, and for the first time in a long time, it doesn't feel like something to survive. It feels like a chance to start over, to figure out what I want, not what I'm supposed to want. I don't need Selena's calls or Brooks' taunts or my parents' approval. I need me, my ideas, my strength, my choices. I stand up, grab my laptop, and open a new document. It's not code this time, just a blank page. I don't know what I'll write yet, but it feels right, like the first step towards something I can't name but know I need. The phone stays in the drawer, and the world stays out there. For now, it's just me, and that's enough. It's been a week since my birthday, and I'm standing in the middle of my apartment, surrounded by cardboard boxes I've been packing all morning. The place looks smaller somehow, stripped of the things that made it mine: books, framed photos, the coffee mug I always used. I'm moving out, not because I can't afford to stay, but because I can't keep living in a space that feels like a museum of a life I don't want anymore. Celine is still in Europe, hasn't been home since before my birthday, and I'm not waiting for her to come back. I'm done waiting for anyone. I tape up a box of clothes, my hands moving on autopilot, and think about the steps I've taken over the past few days. It started the morning after my birthday, when I turned my phone off and decided I needed to take control. I sat at my desk, made a list of what I needed to do, and got to work. First, I backed up all my essential tech projects, years of code, designs, everything I've built for the hospital software and beyond. It's all safe now, stored on a secure drive I keep in a lockbox. I don't know why it felt so urgent, but something told me to protect what's mine. Next, I went online and found a P.O. box in my name, somewhere nobody else knows about. I set up mail forwarding, so anything important, bills, work stuff, goes there instead of here. It's a small thing, but it feels like a clean break, like I'm cutting ties with this address, this life. The biggest step came yesterday, when I signed a lease on a new place in another city. It's a loft, old and rough around the edges, with exposed brick walls and a view of a river that glints in the mornings. I found it online, called the landlord, and drove out to see it the same day. Standing in that empty space, I could breathe easier, like the air was clearer there. It's not fancy, not like the sleek apartment I'm leaving behind, but it's mine. No memories of Selena, no echoes of Brooks or my parents. Just a blank slate. I grab another box from the stack in the corner and start packing my books, wrapping them carefully in bubble wrap. Each one feels like a piece of me, sci-fi novels I read in college, technical manuals I studied to get better at my job, a poetry collection Miriam gave me years ago. I pause, holding that last one, and smile, thinking of her. She texted me yesterday, just to check in, and I told her I was moving. Good for you, she wrote back. Build something new. That's what I'm trying to do, even if I'm not sure what it looks like yet. My phone's on the counter, still mostly off. I only turn it on for work or to call people I trust. Celine has stopped blowing it up with texts, but I know she'll see the divorce papers soon. That's the other thing I did this week. I called Ira Delgado, a friend from college who's now a lawyer. We met for coffee a few days ago, and I told him everything. Selena's trips with Brooks, the way she's been pulling away, the birthday call where he talked about divorce like it was his idea. Ira listened, didn't judge, just nodded and said, "You want out? I'll make it clean." I told him I didn't want to fight, just a fair split, and he said he'd draw up the papers. They're ready now, sitting in an envelope on my desk, addressed to Selena at her office since I don't know where she's staying. I wrote a note to go with them, nothing angry or dramatic, just one line. "You left long before I did." It's true, and saying it, even on paper, feels like letting go of something heavy. I carry a box to the door, stacking it with the others for the movers I hired. The logistics are simple. Most of my furniture's staying, since the new place is furnished, and I don't want anything that reminds me of here. I'm keeping my tech gear, my books, my clothes, and a few small things, like the whiskey glasses from my birthday. Everything else can go. I glance around, making sure I haven't missed anything, and spot a photo frame on a shelf, one of me and Selena at a beach last year. I pick it up, studying her smile, and wonder when it stopped being real. I don't feel sad, not exactly, just distant, like I'm looking at someone else's life. I set it down, leaving it for her to find, or not. It doesn't matter anymore. I head to the kitchen, grab a glass of water, and lean against the counter, thinking about what's next. The new city's a few hours away, far enough to feel like a fresh start, but close enough for work if I need to come back. I've got a meeting with my team tomorrow, and I'll tell them I'm working remotely for a while. They won't care, my code's solid, and I've always delivered. But part of me wonders if I'm ready to step up in other ways, to stop hiding behind my work and start owning it. I shake my head, pushing the thought aside for now. One step at a time. I walk back to my desk, pick up the envelope with the divorce papers, and slip it into my bag. I'll drop it off at a courier service later, make sure it gets to her office before she's back from Europe. I don't know how she'll react. Maybe she'll call, maybe she'll show up, but I'm not scared of it anymore. I'm not running away. I'm walking towards something better, something I choose. I grab my keys, take one last look at the apartment, and step outside, locking the door behind me. The hallway's quiet, the air cool against my skin. I feel lighter, like I've shed a layer of something I didn't need. The elevator dings, and I step in, ready to leave this place behind. Whatever comes next, I'm not looking back. I've been in my new city for a week now, and I'm standing in the loft I rented, the morning sun spilling through the tall windows and painting the brick walls gold. The place is still sparse. Just a bed, a desk, my tech gear, and a few boxes I haven't unpacked, but it feels right, like I can breathe here. I'm sipping coffee from a chipped mug I found in a thrift store, staring out at the river glinting below, and thinking about how different this feels from the life I left behind. The divorce papers are on their way to Selena. My old apartment's empty, and for the first time in years, I'm not waiting for anyone else's approval. But it's not just the move that's got me feeling this way. It's what I've started to reclaim, starting with my work. Most people don't know I'm the guy behind MediVault, a data platform that's changed how hospitals share information. It's worth over $80 million now, but I never talked about it, never needed to. I built it quietly, let others take the spotlight while I focused on making it better. That was fine when I thought I had a family, a wife, people who'd see me for more than my code. But now, with nobody showing up for me, I'm starting to see power in what I've created, not for bragging, but for standing on my own. I set my mug down and walked to my desk, where my laptop's open to an email from an old colleague, Sarah, who runs a tech conference. She's asking me to speak next month, says people are buzzing about MediVault's latest updates. I haven't done much public stuff before. Brooks was always the one charming crowds, but I type a quick reply, saying I'm in. It's a small step, but it feels like claiming something I've ignored too long. I lean back in my chair, thinking about how I got here. A few days ago, I called a couple of industry contacts, people I've worked with over the years. I didn't say much, just checked in, asked about their projects, mentioned I was stepping back into MediVault's leadership. Word spread fast. By yesterday, I had messages from investors, developers, even a reporter wanting to know the story behind the silent architect. I didn't respond to most of them. I'm not ready for that yet, but it's strange, seeing how people react when they realize I'm the one who built something they rely on. I always thought staying quiet was enough, that the work would speak for itself. Maybe it did, but now I'm starting to think I need to speak for it too. I get up and pace the loft, my boots echoing on the wood floor. There's a memory nagging at me, something from a year ago when Brooks tried to get involved with MediVault. He called it a gold mine, wanted to push for a quick sale, take a cut for himself. I shut him down, told him it wasn't about money, it was about saving lives. He laughed, said I was naive, that nobody cared about nerd stuff unless it came with a big check. I ignored him then, but now I wonder if he's been waiting for a chance to take what I built. He's always wanted the glory without the grind, and I've let him think he could outshine me because I didn't care about the spotlight. Not anymore. I sit back down and open my laptop again, pulling up MediVault's internal files. I've been out of the CEO role for a while, letting a board handle the big decisions while I focused on coding. But yesterday, I called a meeting with the team, told them I'm stepping back in. Nobody argued. Most of them know I'm the reason the platform works as well as it does. We talked about new features, ways to make it faster, more secure, things I've been sketching out in my head for months. It felt good, like slipping into a jacket that fits just right. I'm not doing it for fame or money, though I won't lie. Knowing it's mine, knowing I built something nobody can take away, feels like armor against everything I've lost. My phone buzzes on the desk, and I glance at it. It's Miriam, texting to ask how I'm settling in. I smile, typing a quick reply about the view and the coffee. She's been checking in every couple of days, not pushing, just letting me know she's there. It's strange, having someone care without expecting anything back. I tell her I'm good, that I'm figuring things out, and she sends a thumbs up emoji that makes me laugh. I set the phone down and look out the window again. The city's waking up, people walking along the river, a dog chasing a ball, life moving forward. I think about the people who used to laugh at me, not just Brooks but colleagues, even some friends who thought I was just a coder, nothing special. They're reaching out now, leaving voicemails, sending emails, acting like we've been close all along. I don't answer most of them. I don't need their validation. I needed it from my family, from Selena, but they didn't give it. And I'm done asking. What I need now is to keep building, not just software, but a life that feels like mine. I close my laptop and grab my jacket, deciding to take a walk. The air outside is crisp, the kind that wakes you up, and I head toward the river, hands in my pockets. I pass a cafe, a bookstore, a guy playing guitar on a bench, and it hits me how much I like it here. Nobody knows me, not as the guy who built MediVault, not as Brooks' brother or Selena's husband, just as me. I stop by the water, watching it ripple under the sun, and feel something settle in my chest. This is my city now, my work, my life. I've spent too long letting other people write my story, but I'm taking the pen back. Whatever comes next, meetings, speeches, maybe even facing Selena when she gets those papers, it's on my terms. I turn back toward the loft, ready to unpack another box, maybe call Sarah about that conference. The world's starting to see what I've built, but more than that, I'm starting to see it myself. I'm sitting in my loft, the late afternoon light filtering through the windows, casting long shadows across the brick walls. It's been a month since I moved here, and the place is starting to feel like home, books on shelves, a rug I picked up at a market, my tech gear humming quietly on the desk. I'm working on a new update for MetaVault, my fingers tapping out code, but my mind's half on the email I got this morning from Ira, my lawyer friend. He says Selena's back from Europe, and she's furious. The divorce papers hit her office yesterday, and she's already called him, demanding a meeting. I told Ira to handle it, to keep it clean, but I know she won't let this go quietly. I lean back in my chair, rubbing my eyes, and think about what's coming. I'm not scared, not exactly, just ready to close this chapter for good. My phone's been quiet since I changed my number, giving the new one only to people I trust, like Ira and Miriam. Selena doesn't have it, and neither does Brooks, which feels like a small victory. I heard from a mutual friend that she showed up at the old apartment last week, found it cleared out, my keys on the counter, and her access to our joint accounts cut off. I didn't freeze them out of spite. I just moved my money to a new bank, left her what was fair, and made sure she couldn't touch what's mine anymore. Ira says she's claiming I abandoned her, that she's entitled to half of everything, but he's confident she won't get far. I stand up, stretching my arms, and walk to the window, looking out at the river. I think about the prenup we signed before the wedding, something Ira insisted on back when I was too in love to think I'd need it. Selena laughed it off at the time, said it was just paperwork, but I'm glad I listened to him. It's clear now, she didn't expect me to walk away, didn't expect me to have a spine. I smile faintly, shaking my head. I've spent so long being the quiet one, the guy who fixes things without making a fuss, that she forgot I'm not a doormat. I head to the kitchen, grabbing a glass of water, and think about Brooks, too. He's been calling Ira's office, leaving messages, probably thinking he can bully his way into this. I haven't spoken to him since that birthday call, when he taunted me about divorce, and I don't plan to. But I did something last week I'm not entirely proud of, though it felt right. I've been digging through old MetaVault files, checking for loose ends, and found emails from Brooks to one of our board members, pushing for insider deals that looked shady. I didn't hesitate. I sent them anonymously to a contact at the SEC. I don't know what'll come of it, but if he's been playing dirty, he'll face the consequences without me having to say a word. I set the glass down and walk back to my desk, pulling up Ira's latest email. He's prepped for the property hearing next week, says he's got everything we need. Bank statements, the prenup, even security footage from our old apartment building. I didn't know about that last part until he mentioned it. Apparently, the cameras caught Selena leaving with Brooks for those weekend trips she always talked about, over and over, long before my birthday. It's not just proof of her being gone. It's proof she was never really there. I don't feel vindictive, just tired, like I'm finally seeing the truth I ignored for too long. I close the laptop and lean back, thinking about what Iris said about the hearing. Selena's going to push for spousal support, maybe even a chunk of MetaVault, but Ira's ready to shut it down. He says the prenup's ironclad, and the footage will make her claims look desperate. I told him I don't want to drag this out. I just want it done. If she walks away with nothing but her clothes and her pride, that's fine by me. She made her choices, and I'm not paying for them anymore. My mind drifts to Brooks again, to the rumors I've heard through industry friends. His real estate deals are starting to crumble, and word is the SEC's sniffing around. I don't know if it's because of what I sent, but part of me hopes it is. He spent years acting like he's untouchable, like I'm just his nerdy brother who'll never catch up. But I built something real, something that matters, and he can't take that away, no matter how loud he talks. I get up and pace the loft, feeling the wood floor creak under my boots. The hearing's going to be tough, not because I'm worried about losing, but because it'll mean facing her, maybe him too. I don't want to see their faces, don't want to hear their excuses. I just want to move on, to keep building this life I'm starting to like. I think about the conference I'm speaking at soon, about the new MetaVault features my team's rolling out. Those things matter, not because they're loud or flashy, but because they're mine, and they're good. I stop by the window again, watching the city settle into dusk. I feel a calm I didn't expect, like I'm standing on solid ground for the first time in years. Selena can rage, Brooks can squirm, but they don't get to write my story anymore. I'm not the guy who sits quietly while they take what they want. I'm the guy who built an empire nobody saw coming, and I'm not giving it up. I head back to my desk, grab my phone, and text Ira. Do what you need to. I'm ready. Then I set it down and look around the loft, my space, my life. Whatever happens at that hearing, I'm walking out free, and they can't touch that. I open my laptop again, not to work, but to pull up a photo from my birthday, the one with Miriam and me smiling. I don't need to prove anything to Selena or Brooks. I just need to keep being the guy in that picture, the one who's starting to believe in himself again. The sun's almost gone now, and the river's a dark ribbon below. I close the laptop and decide to call it a day. Tomorrow's another chance to build, and I'm not wasting it. I'm standing in my loft, the scent of fresh bread and roasted vegetables filling the air as I adjust the candles on the table. It's been months since the divorce papers were signed, since the hearing where Selena walked away with nothing but her designer bags and a scowl. Tonight, I'm hosting a small dinner, not for my birthday or any big occasion, just because I want to. The space feels alive, warm light bouncing off the brick walls, a soft hum of music from a guitarist friend I met at a local cafe, laughter already starting to spill from the few guests who've arrived. I've got a bottle of whiskey open, the same kind I shared with Miriam on my birthday, and a spread of food I helped make, though I'll admit the bread's from a bakery down the street. I'm not a chef, but I'm learning, and it feels good to try something new. I glance around, taking it all in. Miriam's by the window, chatting with Ira, my lawyer friend, who's holding a glass of wine and grinning like he's never seen me this relaxed. There's a couple of local musicians setting up in the corner, tuning their guitars, and a neighbor I've gotten to know, a painter who's always got a story to tell. It's a small group, maybe 10 people, but they're here because they want to be, because they see me, not some version of me they wish I was. I adjust a plate on the table, feeling a nervous energy I haven't had in a while, not bad nerves, just the kind that comes when you're doing something that matters. I think about the past year, how it started with that empty birthday, nobody showing up except Miriam. I was so lost then, sitting in an apartment that felt like a cage, waiting for Selena, for my family, for anyone to care. I don't feel that way anymore. The hearing was the turning point, when Ira laid out the prenup and the footage of Selena leaving with Brooks, week after week. She tried to argue, said I'd pushed her away, but the judge didn't buy it. She left with what she brought into the marriage, her clothes, her jewelry, her ambition, and I walked out feeling lighter than I had in years. Brooks didn't show up to the hearing, probably too busy dodging the SEC investigation I tipped off. Last I heard, his deals were falling apart, and he's laying low, but I don't care enough to keep tabs. That's their world now, not mine. I pour myself a splash of whiskey and take a sip, the burn familiar and comforting. The guitarist starts playing a slow melody, and I catch Miriam's eye across the room. She smiles, raises her glass, and I nod back, grateful for her. She's been a constant these past months, not just a mentor but a friend, someone who reminds me it's okay to be quiet, to build things slowly, as long as they're real. I think about the letter I wrote a while back, one I never sent to my family. I pull it out sometimes, read it to myself, but tonight, I want to share it. Not because I need to prove anything, but because saying it out loud feels like letting go of the last piece of that old hurt. I clear my throat, stepping to the center of the room, and the chatter quiets down. Hey, everyone, I say, my voice steadier than I expect. I just want to say thanks for being here. This year's been a lot, and having you all in my life means more than I can put into words. I wrote something a while ago, something I needed to get out, and I'd like to read it if that's okay. Nobody objects, just nods or smiles, and I pull the folded paper from my pocket. My hands shake a little, but I unfold it and start reading. To my family, I never needed you to be proud. I only needed you to show up. You didn't. And now, neither will I. The words hang in the air, simple but heavy, and I look up to see Miriam wiping her eyes, Ira giving me a small nod. Nobody claps or makes a big deal, and I'm glad. They just listen, and that's enough. I fold the paper and slip it back into my pocket, feeling like I've set down something I've carried too long. Anyway, I say, breaking the silence, let's eat. That gets a laugh, and the room comes back to life, people grabbing plates, passing dishes, talking over each other. I sit at the table, next to Miriam, and listen to the painter tell a story about a mural he's working on. The food's good, better than I expected, and the whiskey flows, but it's the warmth in the room that fills me up. I think about Metavolt, how I spoke at that conference last month and felt, for the first time, like I belonged in the spotlight. People asked questions, wanted my thoughts, and I realized I had something worth saying. I'm not Brooks, all charm and flash, but I'm me, and that's starting to feel like enough. The night stretches on, and I'm laughing at something Ira says about his latest case when I catch my reflection in the window. I don't look like the guy from a year ago, the one who sat alone waiting for a call that never came. I look like someone who's building something, not just code but a life, with people who choose to be here. The musicians play a new song, something upbeat, and a few people start dancing, clumsy but happy. I stay at the table, watching, and Miriam leans over, her voice low. "You did good tonight, Julian." I smile, not sure what to say, but I know she's right. This is good, messy, real, mine. I raise my glass, and we toast to new beginnings, to nights like this, to people who show up. The music keeps going, the candles burn low, and I let myself sink into it, no regrets, no looking back, just this moment and the promise of more. I wake up to the sound of birds outside my loft window, a soft chirping that's become my morning routine in this new city. It's my 39th birthday, and I'm lying in bed, the sheets cool against my skin, watching the first light creep across the brick walls. There's no weight in my chest today, no anxious checking of my phone for messages that won't come. I feel steady, like I've finally landed somewhere I belong. I roll over, grab my phone from the nightstand, and see a few texts already, Miriam wishing me a happy birthday, Ira joking about getting old, a couple of colleagues saying they're looking forward to the next Metavolt update. I smile, typing quick replies, and get up to start the day. The loft smells like coffee before I even reach the kitchen, thanks to the machine I set up last night. I pour a cup, the mug warm in my hands, and lean against the counter, thinking about how different this birthday feels from last year. Back then, I was sitting in an apartment that felt like a tomb, waiting for Selena, for my family, for anyone to show up. Nobody did, except Miriam, and that night changed everything. Now, I'm here, in a life I built from scratch, and it's better than I could have imagined. I take my coffee to the window, looking out at the river sparkling under the morning sun. Miriam moved into a cottage a few blocks away a couple of months ago, and we've settled into a rhythm, weekly dinners, walks by the river, conversations that don't need to be anything more than what they are. She's not family, not in the way most people mean it, but she's home, the kind of friend who shows up without being asked. I think about inviting her over later, maybe cracking open that whiskey we both like, but for now, I'm content to stand here, letting the day unfold. My phone buzzes again, and I check it, a message from a teacher at the middle school where I sponsor a coding club. She sent a photo, and when I open it, my breath catches. It's a group of kids, maybe 12 or 13 years old, standing in a classroom, holding a banner that reads, "Thank you, Mr. Ross. You made us believe we could build something, too." They're grinning, some holding laptops, others waving at the camera, and I can't stop smiling. I started the club on a whim, thinking I could share what I know, but it's become more than that. Those kids remind me of myself at their age, tinkering with computers, dreaming of things nobody else understood. I text the teacher back, thanking her, and save the photo to my phone. It's the best gift I could have gotten, better than any party or bottle of wine. I set the phone down and head to my desk, where my laptop's waiting. I don't have any big plans today. No meetings, no deadlines, just a few ideas for Metavolt I want to sketch out. The platform's growing faster than I expected, with hospitals across the country signing on, and I'm starting to mentor a few young developers who reached out after my conference talk. I don't feel like the silent architect anymore. I'm just me, doing what I love, and it's enough. I think about Selena for a moment, but it's fleeting, like a shadow passing over the sun. I haven't heard from her since the hearing, and I don't expect to. Last I heard, she moved to another city, chasing some new marketing job. Brooks is out of the picture too, tangled up in legal trouble after the SEC dug into his deals. My parents sent a card a while back, not for my birthday, just a generic note about keeping in touch. I didn't reply. I don't hate them, but I don't need them either. I've got people who show up, and that's more than I ever had before. I sip my coffee, letting the warmth spread through me, and think about the kids in that photo again. I want to do more for them, maybe expand the club, get them better equipment. I jot a note to call the school next week, see what they need. It's not about being a hero, it's about giving them what I wish I'd had, someone who believed in me before I believed in myself. The morning stretches on, and I decide to take a walk before it gets too warm. I grab my jacket, step outside, and let the city wrap around me, bikes whizzing by, a street vendor selling fruit, the hum of life that's become familiar. I pass the cafe where I met the guitarist who played at my dinner party, wave at the bookstore owner sweeping her steps. This place knows me now, not as anyone special, just as the guy who lives by the river, who stops for coffee and says hello. I end up at the water's edge, sitting on a bench, watching the current move slow and steady. I think about Miriam's toast on my last birthday, about building things that matter. I'm doing that, not just with code, but with this life, friends, a community, a purpose that feels bigger than me. I don't need apologies from Selena or my family. Don't need their approval or their regrets. I've got what I need right here, in this moment, in the choices I make every day. My phone buzzes one more time, and it's Miriam again, asking if I'm free for dinner. I text back, telling her to come over, that I'll grab that whiskey and maybe some of that pie she's so good at making. She replies with a smiley face, and I laugh, pocketing the phone. I stand up, stretch, and start walking back to the loft, the sun climbing higher, the birds still singing. The day's mine, and so is the life I'm living, no calls to wait for, no bottles to uncork alone. I'm home, and as I head up the stairs to my door, I know I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. My name is Griffin Miles, and I've worked at Solace Strategies for 9 years. I remember the day I walked into the lobby in my first interview, eager, nervous, convinced this was the place where I would prove myself. Over the years, I stayed late to polish proposals and crafted pitches so persuasive that clients sometimes asked to speak only with me. When the firm landed its first major international account, I organized travel logistics and delivered a presentation that turned skeptics into believers. I sacrificed birthdays, anniversaries, entire weekends, all to ensure Solace thrived. Each success felt like a victory not just for the company, but for my wife, Celeste Hawthorne, who would beam with pride as her right-hand man. As she climbed from senior director to COO and ultimately CEO, I celebrated alongside her, never questioning that my own sacrifices would one day reap equal reward. That reward should have been the obvious next step, the promotion to Chief Strategy Officer, a title that would cement my place in the firm's history. Instead, I learned the truth behind the closed boardroom door. I stood behind the frosted glass, heart pounding in my chest like a drum announcing an invasion, as Celeste concluded the meeting. When she emerged, her eyes avoided mine, her posture stiff with apology. She placed a hand on my arm, an awkward gesture, half affection, half obligation. Her voice trembled when she said, "The position went to Asher Knox." She paused, searching my face for an understanding I did not feel. "Nothing personal," she whispered, as if the phrase alone could smooth over years of devotion. 22 years old, fresh from a business school whose name she had dropped once while bragging to friends. Asher, the handsome new boyfriend who carried her gym bag to the cliffside runs she sponsored in press photos. I felt the betrayal as sharply as a physical blow, my vision narrowing to the painful thrum of blood in my ears. I recalled each late-night conversation in our living room, mapping out financial projections on her laptop. I remembered how she once described me to investors as my secret weapon. Where was the secret now, and who wielded the weapon? My mind raced, remembering sacrifices made with pride. The weekend I skipped Jacob's soccer final to finalize a supply chain deal in Rotterdam. The anniversaries I spent on conference calls instead of sharing a candlelit dinner. Pride gave way to something colder. I stepped toward her, forcing my expression to remain calm. I touched her hand back briefly and felt the distance between us grow infinitely in that moment. "Congratulations to Asher," I said, my voice low and even, betraying nothing of the anger coiled inside me. She blinked, surprised that I could muster a polite smile. "I hope he earns it." She nodded, relief flooding her face as though I had accepted the insult. But I had promised myself in that instant that this would be the last time Solace Strategies swallowed all that I was worth without consequence. Later that evening, as the city lights blurred beneath the airplane's wings, I replayed the conversation over and over. My hotel room felt colder than any boardroom. I stared at the ceiling, counting the scrollwork patterns until dawn. By sunrise, I knew exactly what I would do. My loyalty had been mistaken for weakness. My devotion had been mistaken for servitude. I refused to be the invisible architect of someone else's glory. I rose quietly, brewed coffee strong enough to wake the dead, and reviewed files on my encrypted laptop. Files detailing 17 separate corporations I had built from scratch, entities that operated in sectors ranging from analytics to supply chain management, each one a top client of Solace, and each registered under different names and addresses to ensure professional distance. Without my efforts, those contracts would dissolve like sugar cubes in water. As I drafted the first of 17 termination notices, I felt no remorse, only a glimmer of exhilaration. My hands moved swiftly across the keyboard. Dear company name, we regret to inform you that effective immediately, Solace Strategies will terminate service level agreement #. Each email carried the weight of years of unacknowledged effort. Every subject line was a calculated strike, severing ties that had contributed 72% of Solace's revenue. By the time I clicked send on the final notice, the sun had climbed high above the skyline. I sat back and poured another cup of dark roast, savoring the bitter taste. Loyalty might be rewarded, or it might be exploited. Today, I chose to tip the scales. I did not attend the morning meeting at the firm's glossy headquarters. Instead, I watched alerts pop up on my phone, client inquiries, frantic questions from account managers, and the faintest tremor of panic seeping through every message. When I finally strode into the lobby at noon, my tailored suit felt lighter, my posture more upright than it had in years of feigned deference. The firm I helped build was hemorrhaging revenue, and the board had no idea whom to blame. As I passed through the revolving doors, I looked forward, past Asher Knox's startled gaze, past Celeste's forced composure, and into a future where recognition was no longer a courtesy to be begged for, but a standard I would command myself. People thought I was just a loyal husband playing second fiddle at Solace. The doting man in the tailored suit standing quietly behind his powerhouse CEO wife. The Mr. Hawthorne who smiled in press photos, poured wine at client dinners, and disappeared when the flashbulbs faded. But what they didn't know, what Celeste never told them, was that I wasn't just supporting her from the sidelines. I was the architect of every single major deal that kept that company afloat. You see, there are the public faces of companies, CEO handshakes and photo ops, and then there are the hands that actually hold it together. I was the latter. While Celeste smiled for Forbes and shook hands with Silicon Valley elites, I was back at the desk at 3 a.m., rewriting contracts, renegotiating licensing agreements, and drafting operational blueprints so tight even the regulators didn't blink. Every major client Solace had brought in during the last 4 years, I scouted them, courted them, closed them, and more importantly, I insulated them. Legally, financially, structurally. What no one at Solace knew, not even Celeste, was that I had built a web. 17 companies. 17. Each registered under different holding firms and licensing umbrellas across 5 states. Tech startups, logistics firms, AI analytics, supply chain integrations, fleet management, distribution platforms. I did it all quietly, carefully, methodically. They weren't dummy corporations. They were real, functioning, profit-generating machines. And the common thread tying them together? Solace. I made sure my companies became their biggest clients. Because if I couldn't get the credit I deserved inside Solace, I would control it from the outside. It started small. Just a back-end analytics firm I quietly acquired. I routed a project to Solace for evaluation. They loved it. Signed a year-long agreement. Never even knew I was behind it. That rush of seeing them praise something I built while not knowing it was mine, it did something to me. Gave me clarity. I wasn't being overlooked. I was being used. And I kept building. One contract after another, I wrapped my hands around the company from the outside. They depended on me more than they ever realized. But I didn't pull the plug back then. I wasn't cruel. I thought maybe, just maybe, Celeste would eventually see me. Not just as the husband, the helper, the advisor behind closed doors, but as her equal, as the co-creator of what Solace had become. Instead, she gave my promotion to a boy fresh out of business school, a boy she was sleeping with, a boy who had never stayed up through a deadline with red-rimmed eyes and 3 cups of coffee in his bloodstream. She didn't just ignore my worth. She erased it. So the morning after she gave my title away and called it nothing personal, I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I didn't drink or curse or call my lawyer. I woke up at 4:30 a.m. Like I always did. I shaved, showered, brewed a mug of coffee strong enough to peel paint, and walked into my home office with the same precision I used to build empires. I logged into 17 client portals, opened 17 dashboards, reviewed analytics, client satisfaction scores, service level audits. Everything was clean. Everything was working. That made it easier. No loose ends. No excuses. Then I began scheduling them. 17 termination notices. One for each company. I templated the language. This notice serves as formal termination of our existing SLA with Solace Strategies, effective immediately. We regret that due to recent instability in leadership and breach of confidence, our companies no longer share aligned values. We appreciate the years of partnership and wish you the best in your future endeavors. Each message was tailored with just enough variation to prevent suspicion. I spread the delivery times across the morning. Some at 9 a.m. sharp. Others staggered to hit inboxes between 9:03 and 9:12. No sudden burst. Just a steady leak. Like a puncture in a pressurized tank. I looked out the window. The city below was waking up, horns blaring, sunlight bouncing off mirrored high-rises. And somewhere in the middle of it, Celeste was probably smoothing her hair in the mirror, unaware that the floor beneath her company was about to dissolve. I wasn't smiling. There was no joy in this. Only inevitability. These weren't just terminations. They were reminders. Reminders that I wasn't just a loyal husband in a pressed suit. I was the reason she had a company to lead in the first place. By 8:59, my hands hovered over the keyboard. One final review. 17 windows. One row of tabs. I opened my email client and hit schedule. Each message locked and loaded. At 9 a.m., the first one dropped. By 9:02, two more. By 9:07, I'd already received the first confused response from a Solace account manager. Urgent. Client requesting call regarding sudden SLA cancellation. Flagged for leadership attention. By 9:10, the CTO texted me. By 9:11, Celeste's assistant called. By 9:12, Celeste herself messaged me. Griffin, what's happening? I turned my phone face down and kept sipping my coffee. They weren't ready for this. Not because I had hidden anything, but because they had never bothered to ask what I was building while they ignored me. All those glossy presentations with her name on the front slide? I wrote them. The deals that saved Solace during the 2020 collapse? I negotiated them. I was the scaffolding behind the skyscraper. And they had just torn me out, assuming the building would hold. At 9:17, I opened Solace's official Slack account from my personal laptop and watched as the panic spread. Did anyone approve this? Why weren't we warned? Who owns these companies? By 9:30, the CFO called me and left a voicemail. Hey Griffin, can you come in today? We'd really appreciate your insight. There's some confusion. Confusion. That's what they called it. But I wasn't confused. I was calm. I had just unplugged the empire I built with 9 years of sacrifice. One contract at a time. And I had done it without raising my voice. Without a single angry word. That's the thing about power. Real power doesn't shout. It schedules. At exactly 9 a.m., the first email landed in Solace Strategies' general inbox. I sat back in my chair, the morning sun slanting through my apartment window, and watched the notification ping on my phone. It was beautifully mundane. A brief subject line. Notice of termination. SLA number 2045, followed by a curt two-line body explaining that our agreement had ended. No flourish, no apology, just a clean severance. I exhaled slowly, folding my hands in my lap. This was the culmination of 9 years of meticulous planning and unacknowledged labor. As the seconds ticked by, additional pings echoed in quick succession. 9 of my corporations withdrew simultaneously. Each message carefully staggered between 9 o'clock and 9:05 to avoid suspicion of a glitch. My heart, surprisingly, did not race. The real rush had come days ago when I drafted those notices, but now I felt only a calm certainty as I watched Solace bleed revenue in real time. The firm that had taken my dedication for granted was about to realize how much of its lifeblood I had been quietly pumping through its veins. I lifted my mug of dark roast, the steam curling like smoke signaling revolt, and took a sip. Bitter, yes, but invigorating. It tasted like justice served cold. Outside, the city awakened. Horns honked, bike messengers weaved through traffic, and somewhere a coffee grinder roared. Inside, Solace's smooth exterior was fracturing. By 9:06, I saw the first sign of panic, An internal chat thread lit up with alarms. Urgent. Client X SLA canceled. Who authorized this? Is our legal team aware? This looks coordinated. Something's wrong. Closing procedures initiated? The trolls of chaos I had unleashed thrummed beneath the firm's polished facade. I leaned forward, thinning the distance between triumph and compassion. I still remembered the late nights spent debating service-level adjustments, the collaborative spirit that once defined Solace's culture. But that world had died when Celeste replaced me with Asher Knox, and in turn, a boyfriend, a man who never once bore the weight of a global portfolio on his shoulders. At 9:08, a call came through, Celeste's assistant, voice shaking. Griffin, there's an emergency meeting scheduled in 10 minutes. The CIO wants your input. I nodded, though she couldn't see me. I already knew they would beg. I paused for a moment, tasting the irony. After all those years of offering strategic guidance, I would now be summoned to salvage the crisis I'd engineered. I texted back, I'll be there, and closed the chat window, savoring the rush of power that coursed through me. Then I stood, straightened my tie, half out of habit, half for ceremony, and walked to the door. When I entered Solace's conference suite, it was a scene I would have once described in glowing terms. State-of-the-art AV equipment, ergonomic chairs, a boardroom table polished to a mirror finish. Only now it smelled of panic, coffee forgotten in ceramic mugs, papers strewn like fallen leaves, and faces drawn tight with fear. Asher Knox sat at the head of the table, his posture collapsing as he scrolled on his tablet. Celeste hovered by the screen, exuding brittle tension. The CIO motioned to an empty chair beside him. Griffin, he said, voice wavering, we need you. I sank into the seat, eyes flicking across the room to drink it all in. The CFO frantically flipping through balance sheets, the head of legal biting her lip, investors on the conference call demanding explanations. I cleared my throat. Good morning, I said evenly, each word measured. I see there are questions regarding our client portfolio. They nodded, relief and apprehension mingling in their expressions. The CIO glanced at Celeste, then back at me. Can you shed light on why 17 of our top clients have terminated SLAs at once? Silence settled like a fog. I tapped my pen against the table and explained, each of these corporations is separate, legally distinct, but collectively responsible for 72% of our revenue. Their SLAs were terminated for breach of service due to leadership instability and failure to meet contractual deliverables. Celeste's eyes widened, searching mine for denial. I remained calm. They cited a clear breach of confidence, effective immediately. I continued. I've seen the notices myself. Murmurs rose around the table. The legal head whispered, but breaches? We've met every metric for 9 years. I nodded. That's precisely the point. No one noticed when I built the network, and no one noticed when I withdrew it. The board members exchanged glances. The CFO cleared his throat. Griffin, what can we do? I let the question hang like smoke in the air. I can reinstate contracts one by one, I said, but only if leadership recognizes that loyalty and competence must be valued. Otherwise, these companies will find no reason to return. I watched Celeste's face drain color, the veneer of control cracking. She opened her mouth, closed it, then offered a trembling, please, let's discuss terms. I leaned back, folding my arms. Recognition isn't a gesture. It's an acknowledgement of tangible contributions. You have my terms. As I stood to leave, the room felt smaller, the lights harsher. Phone stopped ringing, breaths paused. I offered a polite nod to Celeste, no warmth, no forgiveness, and walked out, each step deliberate. Outside, the hallway stretched like a runway to freedom. The empire I had built was crumbling, yes, but from the ruins, I could construct something new. I smiled, not for revenge, but for clarity. I had learned that true power isn't in titles or photo ops, but in the ability to shape reality itself. And this morning, reality had bowed to me. 17 contracts unpaid for acknowledgement, 72% of revenue paused on a digital precipice, and I held the switch. Every empire eventually requires an architect bold enough to redesign its foundation. Today, I was that architect. I walked into Solace's glossy offices at exactly noon, the sliding glass doors parting like theatrical curtains to reveal the chaos that had erupted in my wake. The reception area, normally so pristine it felt sterile, was littered with abandoned lattes, crumpled memos, and ringing phones wedged between shoulders and ears. An executive assistant's eyes met mine briefly, her expression a mixture of relief and panic, as though she had been waiting for me to restore order. Beyond the reception desk, the open-plan workspace had transformed into a crisis center. Project managers huddled in tight circles, heads bent low over laptops. Junior associates dashed back and forth clutching smartphones, and somewhere, a printer churned out urgent faxes declaring urgent. Immediate action required. I paused, letting the tenor of the room wash over me. The fluorescent lights glared overhead, bouncing off glass partitions that once projected the illusion of seamless productivity. Now each cubicle looked like a lifeboat drifting on a stormy sea, its occupant clinging desperately to spreadsheets and slide decks as the tide of insolvency lapped at their heels. A flight of stairs led down to the trading desks where I had once delivered impromptu tutorials on client relationship management. Now, wires lay tangled on the floor, and an intern sat frozen, staring at the barriers on her dual monitors as the profit graphs imploded in real time. I strolled past them, unhurried. My suit felt different in this moment, less like a uniform and more like armor. Asher Knox stood near the coffee station, his pastel shirt soaked at the collar from too many nervous gulps of Java. He was attempting to reassure an investor via video call, his tone jittery as he explained away the sudden slashes in service agreements. "We're working to resolve this," he said on speaker, blinking into the camera as if the lens might project some stability. The investor on the other end shook his head, disdain palpable even through digital static, and ended the call mid-sentence. Asher's shoulders slumped. I nodded at him in passing, my greeting measured, then continued towards Celeste's corner office where the epicenter of this storm awaited. Outside her door, two staffers spoke animatedly, their voices hushed but frantic. "How does this even happen?" one asked, eyes wide. 17 major clients? Gone in one morning. The other shook her head. "It has to be sabotage or a system error. Why would our backbone just quit on us?" They glanced at me as I approached, and then fell silent, waiting for my answer. I allowed them a moment to register my presence. 9 years of history folded into my gait, the weight of every proposal and contract I had ever touched. Then I pushed through the door. Celeste stood at the far end of her office, framed by floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the city skyline. The sunlight sluiced in, illuminating her silhouette and casting long shadows across the marble floor. Papers were strewn across her desk in an entropy of reports and balance sheets. She spun around when she heard the door click closed, her expression flickering through hope, confusion, and fear. The expensive heels she wore clicked against the polished surface as she moved toward me, arms outstretched. "Griffin, what is happening?" Her voice trembled, brittle with desperation. I studied her face, every line and contour reflecting the broken trust between us. The soft curl of her hair, once so carefully arranged to project confidence, now seemed disheveled. Her tailored jacket hung slightly off-kilter, a metaphor for the balance she had lost. I recognized the moment. This was her breaking point, the instant she realized that her carefully constructed empire had been built on the foundation I provided. I placed one hand in my pocket and held her gaze without wavering. "Market correction, I think," I said quietly, as if delivering a weather report rather than shattering her world. My tone was neutral, clinical, an echo of the same detachment she had shown when she handed my promotion to Asher. She blinked, trying to parse the meaning behind my words. Or perhaps leadership instability. The corners of her mouth twisted downward as understanding bloomed in her eyes. "But you can fix this," she whispered, words heavy with pleading. "These are your accounts, your companies." I took a step forward, closing the distance between us. The office felt smaller now, walls pressing in as if eager to witness my decision. I lowered my voice so only she could hear. "I was going to," I said, "but then you gave my title to your intern with benefits." No name, no recrimination beyond that one pointed phrase. She flinched, lips parting as though to defend herself, then closed her mouth again. I saw in her eyes the memory of every time she had taken my advice in private while basking in the public applause wrongly attributed to her alone. Silence stretched between us, charged with the weight of 9 years of shared ambition and unspoken resentment. Behind Celeste, the office beyond her glass walls struggled to recover from my orchestrated exodus. I watched a cluster of vice presidents pace the corridor, terrified mutters escaping their lips like smoke. Even here, in the headquarters she ruled, the air tasted of panic and regret. I straightened my tie, a habit I had formed in boardrooms and crisis meetings long before today's conflict. I turned slightly, nodding toward the window. It's not too late, I said. We can restore these agreements if you choose to acknowledge that I built them. My words hung in the air, a lifeline thrown across a chasm of betrayal. She swallowed, throat bobbing as she processed the ultimatum. Her voice was barely audible when she finally spoke. I'm sorry. Let me make this right. She took a step toward me, but her reaching hand trembled. I watched, heart tempered by a mix of satisfaction and sorrow. Every year I had stayed silent, believing our partnership would blossom into equal recognition. Instead, my silence had been mistaken for complacency. Without another word, I turned and walked toward the door, the click of my shoes echoing through the suddenly hushed office. Behind me, Celeste's voice rose in a plea, but I didn't look back. The moment for reconciliation had passed with the echo of those 17 termination notices. As the door slid shut, I left behind more than a crumbling enterprise. I left behind the illusion of partnership built on unacknowledged labor. From this day forward, I would build anew, anchored by recognition, not the echoes of a title withheld. The board assembled that afternoon in the same hushed grandeur where I had once envisioned my triumph. I stepped into the oak-paneled room, its walls adorned with framed mission statements and glossy photographs of triumphant teams. A single long table stretched before me, ringed by high-backed leather chairs occupied by faces I'd known for years, some I'd mentored, others who had once vouched for my promotion. Today they looked at me with a mixture of wariness and hope. The CFO, pale and tremulous, gestured to the chair at the far end. "Griffin, thank you for joining us," he said, voice barely concealing relief. I nodded, but made my way to the center seat, equidistant from all watching eyes. At the head of the table sat the board president, a man whose stoic demeanor rarely betrayed emotion. As I took my seat, he cleared his throat and adjusted his glasses. "We've convened on short notice," he began, tone measured, "because we need answers. 72% of our income evaporated this morning. Can someone explain how that happened?" The question hovered above us like an accusation. I inhaled slowly, scanning the circle of faces. Asher Knox perched nervously beside Celeste, the CTO tapping a pen against a stack of financial reports, and the outside investors on Video Link, their corporate logos flickering at the screen's edge. In that moment, the polished veneer of authority peeled away, revealing the vulnerability of a company unprepared for its own fragility. I straightened my back, smoothing the creases in my jacket. "I'd be happy to explain," I said, voice calm but confident. The board president inclined his head, granting permission. I leaned forward, placing both palms flat on the table as if to anchor myself in the gravity of my words. Each of the 17 corporations that terminated their SLAs this morning is independent, legal, and distinct. Their contracts collectively generated 72% of Solace's revenue. I explained, eyes sweeping the room. Those agreements cited breach of service and failure to meet leadership obligations. Murmurs rippled through the board members. Breach? Failure? As astonishment spread, I paused, letting the weight of the revelation settle. The board has prioritized internal politics over performance, I continued evenly. By awarding the chief strategy officer role to an intern with no track record, you signaled to our clients that loyalty and competence are secondary to personal relationships. They responded by exercising their legal right to withdraw. Celeste's mouth opened, closed, and her knuckles whitened on the tabletop. Asher's gaze shifted to the tablecloth, avoiding mine. Across the room, the CFO shifted in his seat, suddenly aware of the precariousness of his own position. The board president's expression remained neutral, though his fingers drummed a rapid rhythm. "You orchestrated this?" he asked quietly. I nodded. "Yes, I arranged the terminations. I built those companies to safeguard us from complacency, but I did not expect to have to use them against Solace itself. However, after 9 years of unrecognized service, I felt obligated to demonstrate the cost of overlooking true contributors. A silence descended so thick that even the hum of the air conditioner seemed loud in comparison. "Is this vindictive?" the external investor on the video link asked, voice trimmed by corporate courtesy. "Because if so, we need legal counsel immediately." I met the camera's lens and replied, "Not vindictive necessary. A lesson in accountability. If Solace expects to remain a leader in the industry, it must value merit over manipulation." The screen flickered as the investor absorbed my words, uncertainty etched across his features. Celeste cleared her throat and rose to her feet, her posture unsteady. "Griffin, please," she said, voice quavering. "You know I never meant harm. I made a mistake. We can rectify this, promote you, restore your title, even grant you equity." She lifted a white envelope from beside her notes, pressing it toward me as though it contained all the world's apologies. I reached past it without touching. "I don't want a title," I said, meeting her gaze. "I want recognition and respect for the work I've done. You had 9 years to give me that. I no longer need Solace's validation." A gasp rose from the board members. Even the board president's eyebrows twitched. "Then what do you want?" he asked, voice firm. The question rippled through the room, carrying the gravity of a crossroads. I folded my hands and studied the polished tabletop, tracing the grain with my gaze. "I want autonomy," I said at last. "I will offer to reinstate those contracts under one condition, that I serve as an independent partner with authority to oversee strategic partnerships directly, reporting only to the board itself, without interference from Solace's internal politics. If you refuse, those 17 clients will remain with the companies I founded." The table fell into stunned quiet. Celeste's face flushed crimson. She slammed a hand on the table, rattling water glasses. "You can't be serious," she exclaimed. "Do you realize what you're asking? You're demanding control over the very board that rejected you." I lifted my chin. "I'm asking for the recognition I earned, and the respect that should have been extended years ago. If you want your clients back, this is the path. If not, I'll build something better." Another silence filled the room. The board members exchanged knowing glances. The CIO tapped his pen. The CFO cleared his throat. One investor rubbed his chin. Finally, the board president spoke, his voice measured like a judge delivering verdict. "We will consider your proposal. We will convene tomorrow morning to discuss terms. Until then, we request you abstain from any further action." I nodded, standing slowly. "Understood," I replied. As I walked toward the door, heads turned, I was tracking my every step. The weight of 9 years of unseen labor and unspoken resentment had finally been laid bare. I paused at the threshold, glancing back one last time. Celeste stood motionless, her face a mask of regret. The board president leaned back, fingers steepled in thought. The rest of the room seemed to shimmer with uncertainty. Then I closed the door gently behind me, leaving them to ponder the fallout of a boardroom funeral I had delivered with quiet precision. Outside in the hallway, sunlight streamed through tall windows, illuminating my path forward. I felt alive, more than ever, knowing that I had shattered old expectations and carved a new direction from the remnants of a broken promise. Celeste trailed behind me through the gleaming marble corridor, her heels echoing like hesitant footsteps of a plea-seeking refuge. The boardroom doors had closed behind us, sealing away the stunned gasps and whispered conjectures I had delivered with quiet precision. I paused at the intersection where the glass walls gave onto the city vista, the skyline shimmering with indifferent indifference. She stopped a few paces back, her breath uneven, as though she had run a race she never intended to win. I felt the tension in her posture, the tremor in her voice when she finally spoke. "Griffin, please, wait." I turned slowly, resisting the urge to soften my expression. For 9 years, I had tempered my reactions for her sake. Now, I needed clarity, not consolation. Celeste's face was drawn, ashen under the fluorescent lights, every line etched by regret and unspoken apologies. She lifted a trembling hand. "I made a mistake," she said, voice thick and raw. "I never meant to hurt you. None of this was personal. You have to believe me." I studied her, recalling the day I had first walked into Solace Strategies, bright-eyed and determined. She had embraced me then, and I had dedicated myself to her ascent. But this moment was different, a reckoning, unfiltered by boardroom facades or press releases. The air between us crackled with shattered expectations. I folded my arms, choosing my words with care. "You weren't scared of my power, Celeste," I said, the words deliberate and measured. "You were scared I didn't need yours." Her jaw tightened, and for a moment, I thought she would snap, would lash out with the arrogance that had once made her so formidable. Instead, she exhaled, shoulders slumping as the weight of my accusation settled upon her. She swallowed, eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Name your terms," she whispered, voice thin with desperation. I inhaled the sterile scent of the corridor, the faint hum of the air vents resonating beneath our feet. "I want recognition," I said steadily. "Not just in name, but in authority. I want to reinstate those contracts. Yes, but under my leadership as a partner, reporting directly to the board. I want equal ownership in the company I built just as much as you did. I want my title on the door and my voice in every strategic decision. Celeste's eyes widened, flicking toward the distant office lights as if searching for reflexive support that had evaporated. That's a tall order, she stammered, her tone fractured. You know what that means. The board will balk. They'll resent ceding power to you after they chose someone else. She bit her lower lip, the same way she had done during tense negotiations when stakes were high. But then her posture straightened, determination flickering back into her gaze. They respect you, Griffin, she added, voice steadier. They respect what you've done. I can convince them. I remembered each negotiation where I had been the silent hand guiding her triumphs, each presentation she accepted as her own. I recalled how she had credited Asher for his proposals, though he had merely repeated bullet points I had supplied. Respect isn't enough, I said quietly. I want partnership, shared responsibility, shared profit, shared authority. If you can't deliver that, then no apology, no title, no equity will fix this. A swirl of emotions crossed her face, fear, resolve, remorse. She bit her lip, then exhaled, nodding once as though anchoring herself to my demand. All right, she said. I'll take it to the board. I'll advocate for your role as partner and chief partnership officer, your name on the door, 50% equity, direct oversight of client relations. I'll do whatever it takes. Her voice wavered, sincerity bleeding through the strain. I closed my eyes briefly, feeling a mix of vindication and fatigue. It wasn't revenge I craved. It was justice tempered by fairness. I opened my eyes, meeting her gaze. That's the start, I said. But understand, I won't be your secret advisor anymore. You'll hear me in every board meeting. You'll see my decisions reflected in every contract. She nodded, swallowing hard. I understand. Then she hesitated, her expression softening. I'm sorry, Griffin. For every night you missed with our son. For every dinner I missed because I was chasing headlines. Her voice broke, and I felt a pang of sadness, not for myself, but for what we had lost. I lowered my arms and took a step closer. We both lost something, I admitted, recalling birthday parties skipped, anniversaries spent at separate ends of a conference table. But this is our chance to rebuild, together, properly this time. She reached out, brushing her fingertips against my sleeve. Together, she agreed, voice small but resolute. Then she squared her shoulders, as though preparing for battle. Let's go to the board. I led the way, each step echoing with the promise of a new chapter. The corridor stretched ahead, the glass walls reflecting the city's pulse. We walked side by side, no longer as husband and wife bound by invisible servitude, but as equals forging a genuine partnership. Behind us, the boardroom doors would open again, this time to an offer they could not ignore. A man who had built their firm from the shadows, stepping into the light. Ahead of us lay negotiations, contentious debates, and the hard work of earning trust anew. Yet as we approached the threshold, I felt a sense of calm purpose. I had set my terms. She had accepted them. Now it was time for the firm to recognize the value that had always been there, unacknowledged but undeniable. We paused at the door. Celeste inhaled, then exhaled, and I placed a hand on the handle. As she met my eye, I nodded once, a silent affirmation that despite the chaos, we were aligned. I turned the handle and pushed the door open, stepping into the room where my future, and Solace Strategy's future, would be decided. 3 days later, I stood outside the minimalist glass facade of Larkwood Solutions' new headquarters, the morning sun reflecting off polished steel and tinted windows. It was surreal, this building that I now called my own, one of the 17 companies I had quietly founded and nurtured in parallel with my career at Solace. I drew a slow breath and walked through the revolving doors, the click of my leather shoes echoing through the lobby like a private victory march. No longer hidden behind Celeste's shadow, I felt the crisp air of autonomy filling my lungs. Inside, the reception area was warm and bright, a stark contrast to the tension and panic still gripping Solace. The walls were adorned with abstract art that suggested motion and progress, and sleek wooden benches invited guests to settle in. Under a recessed spotlight, a chrome-plated plaque bore the name Larkwood Solutions. Beneath it, in etched steel letters, read G. Miles, founder and CEO. I paused to take it in, the weight of recognition settling over me like a well-tailored suit. Nora's voice called my name before I saw her emerge from the corner office. There she was, former executive scheduler to Celeste, always indispensable, yet chronically underpaid. She moved toward me with a confident stride, her smile bright and genuine. Gone was the nervous tension that had marked her under Solace's fluorescent lights. Now her shoulders were squared, her eyes alight with purpose. When she reached me, I shook her hand, noticing the firmness of her grip. "Welcome to your new office, Mr. Miles," she said, voice warm with respect. I placed a hand on her shoulder. "Please," I corrected, "call me Griffin." She nodded. "Of course, Griffin. Let me show you to your corner suite." We rode the glass elevator to the top floor, the city unfolding beneath us like a living map. When the doors opened, I stepped into a spacious office bathed in natural light, with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered panoramic views of the skyline I had once only glimpsed from Solace's boardroom. The room was furnished with modern elegance, a walnut desk polished to a deep sheen, a modular leather sofa positioned for private meetings, and a low credenza displaying a single sculpture of intertwined metal strands, symbolic of connection, I assumed. Nora moved to the desk and opened the drawer, retrieving a sleek nameplate that she placed beside a slender glass vase holding a single white orchid. "Founder and CEO," she said, smiling. "It suits you." I thanked her quietly, settling into the high-back chair and feeling the leather adjust to my weight. For the first time in years, I felt truly at home in my own achievement. Behind me, Nora placed a framed photograph on the credenza, our Solace Strategies client team celebrating a major contract win. I frowned slightly. "Is that appropriate?" I asked. She shook her head. "I thought you might want a reminder, not of Solace's collapse, but of what you built." I studied the image, my younger self beaming alongside Celeste, maps and charts splayed across the table. Then I smiled, understanding her intention. "Keep it," I said. "It's part of the journey." Nora inclined her head, then stepped out to retrieve my tablet and phone charger. While she was gone, I walked to the window, the city humming beyond the glass. I felt the energy of possibilities stretching out like sunlight on concrete. Here, I would craft a new sanctuary, for talent overshadowed, for ideas dismissed, for professionals undervalued. Larkwood wouldn't just be another corporate identity. It would embody the principles I had fought so long to assert: meritocracy, respect, partnership. When Nora returned, she handed me a printed agenda, our first week's strategic priorities, including client outreach, staffing approvals, and branding rollout. I scanned the top line. "Welcome to Larkwood Solutions, leadership meeting, 2 p.m., conference room A." Beneath that lay a list of former Solace colleagues I had invited to join: Luciana Vega, Tarek Benson, and Nika Chowdhury. Each one passed over by Celeste, but bursting with talent. I felt gratitude swell. These were people I had silently supported, and now I could lift them where they belonged. At precisely 2 p.m., I led the meeting in a polished conference suite whose glass walls framed the city's bustle. Luciana arrived first, her sharp gaze softening into a relieved smile as she shook my hand. Tarek followed, briefcase in hand, and Anika drifted in moments later, exuding quiet confidence. When all were seated, I addressed them directly. "Thank you for trusting me. You know what happened at Solace. I won't dwell on that. What matters is that Larkwood Solutions will be different." Their nods were steady, their faces open. I outlined our vision: bespoke analytics services, agile supply chain integrations, and proprietary AI-driven decision tools. "We will deliver excellence, uncompromised by politics," I promised. "We will build together, profit together, and succeed together." Luciana's eyes gleamed. "Finally, a place where our work speaks for itself," she said. Tarek leaned forward. "I'll set up the financial controls, complete transparency." Anika tapped a pen thoughtfully. "I can recruit more talent," she offered. With every affirmation, I felt the sanctuary solidify. Over the following days, Larkwood's press team drafted a release. Larkwood Solutions emerges as industry disruptor under Griffin Miles' leadership. Quotes from industry analysts predicted rapid growth, and social media buzzed with excitement. Meanwhile, Solace's PR remained entangled in crisis statements and mea culpas, their brand tarnished by headlines like "Solace's sudden collapse," "When favoritism betrays a firm." Every time I saw Solace mentioned, a mixture of pity and vindication washed over me. Pity for them, mired in regret, and vindication for me, steering a ship built on genuine merit. Late one afternoon, Nora knocked and brought me coffee. "They're starting to call," she said. "Potential clients, former colleagues, media inquiries, everyone wants to know what's next." I smiled, drained my cup, and tapped my fingertips on the desk. "Let them call," I replied. "We're ready." That evening, I stayed behind to finalize contracts with our first wave of clients, companies that once underpinned Solace's revenues. As I initialed each page and slid them across the desk to Nora, I felt the full circle of my journey. Where once I had crafted deals in the shadows, now I signed them in the light, every signature a testament to my rightful place at the helm. I locked the office and walked to the window, watching the city lights spark as dusk fell. In the glass reflection behind me, I saw a man who had shed old constraints. With the city sprawling below and the orchid beside me, I knew I had built more than just a company. I had built a sanctuary, one where talent was honored, effort was rewarded, and recognition was never withheld. And as I turned off the light and stepped into the elevator, I carried with me a promise that I would never again be invisible in my own success. In the weeks that followed my official unveiling as founder and CEO of Larkwood Solutions, I devoted every waking hour to building a culture that valued talent over titles, substance over optics. My first priority was to extend genuine second chances to those brilliant minds Celeste had overlooked, people I had watched rumored about in hushed corridors, whose accomplishments were downplayed in favor of boardroom theatrics. Luciana Vega, once passed over 3 times for promotions despite her uncanny knack for closing complex negotiations, answered my call with cautious optimism. When she walked into my corner office on her first day, her posture hinted at uncertainty, as if she half expected another dismissal. I greeted her with a firm handshake and a clear promise. "Here, your ideas carry weight. Your voice shapes strategy." Her surprise melted into resolve, and I knew we were on the right path. Next was Tarek Benson, the accounting prodigy whose models had caught the eye of the CFO at Solace, only to be buried beneath layers of bureaucracy and favoritism. Tarek arrived clutching a slim portfolio of his projections, charts, and graphs that transformed risk into opportunity. We met over a single espresso in the Larkwood Cafe Nook, the morning sun filtering through low-hung pendant lights. He leaned in, excitement tempered by years of disappointment. "I've been ready for a chance like this," he said. I nodded, already envisioning the streamlined financial controls he would implement. "You'll have full autonomy over budgeting and forecasting. No gatekeepers. No hidden agendas." His smile was the kind I had chased for years. Then there was Anika Chowdhury, whose quiet brilliance in user experience design was overshadowed by louder personalities at Solace. Anika had built intuitive interfaces that clients raved about. But internally, her work was credited to teams rather than to her singular vision. When she accepted my offer to join Larkwood as head of product design, she arrived with a modest laptop and a notebook filled with sketches so meticulous they looked like art. In our first brainstorming session, she laid out a plan for a new client portal that would set industry standards for accessibility and insight. I leaned back, watching her presentation, and realized she had been waiting for this stage her entire career. Together, we gathered at the grand conference table that overlooked the city skyline, which by now flickered with the glow of countless windows. Our team assembled, experts in strategy, data science, design, and operations, each one recruited from the ranks of the undervalued. I opened the meeting with a simple declaration. At Larkwood, second chances aren't charity. They're strategic advantage. We are building a sanctuary for the best minds who have ever been denied the spotlight. I watched their eyes light up as I unveiled our roadmap, cross-functional teams empowered to set their own goals, a flat organizational structure that prioritized collaboration over command, and a profit-sharing model that aligned individual success with company growth. Luciana tapped her pen against her notebook and said, "We'll need to redefine our brand voice to reflect this ethos." Tarek chimed in, "Our financial projections must include contingency reserves. Volatility is our friend, not our enemy." Anika sketched wireframes on the whiteboard. Clients will navigate our platform in ways they didn't even know were possible. Each contribution built on the last, and I felt a surge of pride. Not in having orchestrated this, but in witnessing innovation that had been stifled for too long. Meanwhile, word of our progress traveled fast. Former Solace colleagues began reaching out, intrigued by Larkwood's rapid ascent. Offers of partnership, inquiries about equity, each message a testament to the shifting tides. But I remained focused on execution. I invested in personalized onboarding experiences, welcoming each new hire with a tailored roadmap and one-on-one mentorship sessions. I created a recognition wall in the lobby, featuring photographs of our team members with captions highlighting their key achievements. When Luciana secured our first Fortune 500 client under the Larkwood banner, her image went up in lights, an affirmation of the value she had long deserved. As we celebrated our first quarter results, revenue growth that surpassed projections and client satisfaction scores that set new benchmarks, I found myself reflecting on the contrast between my two worlds. At Solace, my efforts had fueled someone else's narrative. At Larkwood, every milestone felt personal, every victory shared. I walked through the open plan office that evening, pausing to congratulate our teams. I caught sight of Anika demonstrating a prototype to a potential client, Tarek deep in analytics on his dual monitors, and Luciana engaged in a spirited debate about market expansion. Their energy was contagious, their belief in our mission unwavering. In the midst of this whirlwind, one call surprised me most. Asher Knox, fresh from his 2-week Bali retreat and no longer welcome in press releases, left a hesitant voicemail. "Griffin, it's Asher. I'm available if you ever need advice on youth engagement strategies." I smiled at the absurdity. "No, Asher, thank you but no. Our sanctuary wasn't built for interns on jet lag. It was built for those who had weathered storms and emerged stronger." Celeste's offers of equity and partnership still hovered at the edge of my inbox, but I had moved beyond that chapter. When I finally replied, I wrote, "Thank you, but my path is here, with the people who believed in me before it was convenient." I clicked send, feeling the freedom of choice I had so long denied myself. By the end of the quarter, Larkwood's brand was recognized as an industry disruptor. Major publications featured profiles of our leadership team, each story centered on the theme, elevating the undervalued. Clients praised our responsiveness and transparency, competitors watched with unease as our momentum built. But more importantly, within our walls, a culture of genuine respect thrived. I often found myself standing at the recognition wall, reading the captions, remembering the nights Luciana stayed up perfecting her pitch deck, or the weekends Tarek sacrificed to fine-tune risk models. Each photo told a story of redemption and resilience. As I sat in my glass-walled office one late evening, overlooking the city lights, I felt a profound sense of fulfillment. I had not only built a company, I had vindicated the hidden strengths of brilliant people. Larkwood was more than a business. It was a testament to what happens when recognition is granted, rather than withheld. And as I leaned back in my chair, I knew this was just the beginning. Second chances, handled my way, would continue to reshape industries and redefine what it meant to succeed together. One evening, well past the hour when most offices dimmed their lights, I sat alone in my corner suite at Larkwood Solutions, the city skyline a glittering tapestry beyond the glass walls. The glow from my monitor illuminated lines of analytics and projections, but my mind drifted to Solace strategies and the chaos I had left behind. A soft chime announced a new message in my inbox. I glanced at the sender. It was Celeste, her email address unusually unadorned by corporate signature. My heart skipped a beat as I clicked it open. The subject line read simply, "We're selling." My chest tightened as I scrolled through her words. She wrote that the board, still reeling from revenue collapse and public backlash, had decided to sell Solace to a private equity firm by month's end. She admitted that she would be replaced, stripped of her CEO title, her carefully curated legacy unraveling. Yet beneath the news of her downfall, she conveyed something more personal, regret. "I never meant to hurt you," she wrote, "and I never meant to squander what we built together. Please understand that." At the end, I was terrified of my own mistakes. I leaned back in my chair, the leather creaking beneath me. 1,000 memories played across my mind. The late nights we had collaborated on pitch decks, the whispered debates over financial forecasts at 4 a.m, the small victories I quietly engineered that she publicly celebrated. I felt the old pang of betrayal, but it was tempered now by the distance I had created. Larkwood was thriving on principles of transparency and mutual respect, principles she had abandoned. I composed my response carefully, each word measured. "You weren't scared of my power. You were afraid you didn't need it." It was a mirror of what I had told her in the hallway of Solace's offices on the day I reclaimed my own worth. I paused, reading the line again, ensuring it carried the precise weight of my conviction. Then I pressed send. Almost instantly, a reply notification appeared. Her message delivered and read. Rather than offer further apology or persuasion, I chose silence. I knew that to reply again would be to reopen a door I had firmly closed. Celeste had her own path to walk now, when I would no longer guide. Instead, I turned back to my work, pulling up the profiles of prospective clients I had invited to our next Larkwood strategy session. I drafted invites for Luciana, Tarek, and Anika, already envisioning the innovative solutions they would bring. As I typed, I felt the calm assurance of a man who had rebuilt his life on foundations of respect and collaboration. Minutes later, another chime sounded. This time, it was an incoming call from a Solace board member whom I had never met in person. Curious, I answered. His voice, tremulous yet cordial, thanked me for my candor and acknowledged that without my intervention, the sale might collapse entirely. He asked if I would consider advising the incoming leadership team post-acquisition. I smiled to myself, tasting irony. The very people who once overlooked me were now seeking my expertise. I muted the call, considered the offer for a moment, then declined softly, saying I was fully committed to Larkwood's vision. The board member's disappointment was palpable, but he understood. By the time I returned to my own suite, the drafting table was cleared, my tablet and tablet stylus glowing like torches in the dim light. I closed my laptop and stood. Moving to the recognition wall in the hallway, I traced the photos of my team's achievements, client testimonials, snapshots from company retreats, headlines celebrating Larkwood's rapid growth. Each image reminded me why I had chosen a new path rather than salvage an old empire. On my way out, I passed an encrypted message on my phone from a trusted former Solace colleague. We all wish we had recognized you sooner. I tapped a brief reply. Better late than never. Then I locked the office and descended the elevator, the hum of the machinery a soothing cadence against the roar of downtown traffic below. Later that night, as I relaxed in my apartment overlooking the city lights, I reflected on the trajectory that had led me here, from overlooked strategist at Solace to architect of a sanctuary where talent flourished. Celeste's final email signified the end of an era, a closing chapter that I had already moved beyond. My future lay in the bright minds I nurtured and the innovative solutions we crafted together. I poured a glass of water and raised it in a silent toast to the journey, one defined not by titles awarded or taken away, but by the recognition we earn when we choose to build, uplift, and lead with integrity. I don't believe in revenge, but I do believe in reminders. Every morning, as sunlight filters through the blinds of my corner office at Larkwood Solutions, my gaze settles on the frame beside my desk. It holds the Solace promotion email, the one that began it all. To Griffin Miles. Subject, position filled. Message, nothing personal. Underneath, in bold gold letters, I added my own annotation. Recognition isn't given. It's taken. That frame is more than decoration. It's a testament to the moment I chose myself over unnoticed servitude. I often imagine Celeste passing by that frame in her new life, no longer CEO, stripped of the company she once commanded, and feeling the weight of its message. But for me, it's not about her regret. It's about the promise I made to myself 9 years ago, the vow I kept when I could have begged or pleaded but instead orchestrated my own liberation. Each glance at the frame reminds me that silent labor deserves acknowledgement, that unseen hands can still shape destinies. Behind me, my team buzzes with activity. Luciana closing a multinational deal, Tarek finalizing quarterly forecasts, Anika refining the next-generation client portal. They know my story. They can recite the headlines. How 72% of Solace's revenue evaporated overnight. How Larkwood rose from those ashes. Yet they don't see the frame and my private note as arrogance, but as inspiration, proof that resilience and strategic courage can rewrite any narrative. Today, I have back-to-back meetings, a pitch to a prospect in renewable energy, a workshop on our equity-sharing model, and a late lunch with a former Solace executive who sought my counsel. I greet each with the same calm confidence I cultivated when I sent those 17 termination notices. I've learned that true power lies not in dramatic gestures but in purposeful actions executed with precision. As noon approaches, I step out onto the terrace adjoining my office. The skyline stretches endlessly, glass towers reflecting blue sky and the promise of opportunity. I inhale deeply, savoring the moment. My phone vibrates with a congratulatory message from a board member at Solace, now part of the acquiring firm. A message of belated respect for steering the sale responsibly. I let the notification sit unread. I don't need approval from that world anymore. Instead, I turn back inside, ready for the afternoon's work. I pause at the frame one last time, a private nod to the man I once was and the man I've become. The note beneath the original email isn't bitterness, it's affirmation. I forced recognition, reclaimed my worth, and built something better. And every day, that frame reminds me that the only validation that truly matters is the legacy we choose to create for ourselves.